You're listening to Hockey Talk on the Rock
Alright, stop!
with Laura and Keith.
It's interesting.
So let's back up a second.
He played absolutely out of his mind.
It made no sense to me.
And now, here are your hosts.
Born ready.
We ready?
Ready to rock.
Okay, sweet. Okay, alright, here we go. We are back with the Hockey Talk on the Rock thing that we do for episode number 44.
Woohoo.
And what are we? Friday, July 16th
Yes.
on Salt Spring Island.
Yes.
This is Laura, I'm Keith. Doing our thing, and we've got a lot of stuff to talk about because the expansion draft lists are coming out tomorrow.
Yeah.
So that's pretty exciting, and things are happening. So it's been a busy week. So Canucks news first, as always, I think,
Sounds
right?
good, yeah.
I've got a couple things. You got a couple things?
Yeah, I'm assuming they're probably the same things.
Probably things.
Yeah. So, I mean, the first one, which I feel like is the bigger piece of the two, is that Alex Edler's agent today announced that he's not re-signing for the team, with the team at least for now, and he's going to test free agency, which, I mean, like, I feel like there's two sides to this because I think you can argue that Edler over his career has probably been the best defenseman, like, overall the Canucks have ever had to this point, overall ability. I think he was pretty underrated, like, especially earlier in his career. However, for me, personally, watching him last year especially, but even the year before, I was like, yeah, he's really slowing down, and I wouldn't mind seeing them move on from him. It's, you know, really unfortunate for him that it had to end in a season where there could be no fans in attendance and stuck on 99 goals, but I'm willing to bet however much money that he's going to score his 100th against the Canucks, and I bet he ends up in Tampa Bay.
Yeah, you think so? I
Yeah.
don't agree with most of that.
It's okay.
I think he's going to resign. I feel like it's more of like a negotiating tactic to be able to say, like, I've got this is the value on the
Sure,
market, and
yeah.
come back to them
Yeah.
and say, like, just give me more or whatever.
Yeah.
And especially, too, he's 75 games away from 1,000, and it would be all in a Canuck uniform like Henrik and Daniel.
And also them coming back into the fold, and then him leaving is like...
So
Yeah.
I feel like it's going to come back full
Yeah.
circle for him, and he'll stick with the team.
I can see it. I can also see him leaving. And,
Oh, yeah, I wouldn't be shocked.
Yeah. But yeah. Anyway.
That was not one of my two.
Oh, yeah.
So,
there you go.
that's good. What else you got?
Well, I just read your comment, and I was going to bring that one up, too.
Okay.
So, the next one is the Canucks announced the name and released the jerseys for their farm teams, which, you know, obviously was received with mixed reviews, is what I'm going to call it. They are now called the Abbotsford Canucks. I have no problem with the name of the Canucks. I think people, like, the overreaction to the name was typical, but, like, there's tons of teams that do that, right? And the Canucks have their saying, it's like, we are all Canucks.
That's my point I was going to bring
Yeah.
up, too, is the We Are All Canucks thing. And why
Yeah.
wouldn't you when they're just down the highway or whatever?
Yeah.
I like that they use the Johnny Canuck as well.
Yes.
I mean, I wanted to go with the Aviators or something like
Yeah.
that, but, like, I get it. For branding purposes.
I think it's really smart for branding, especially now that they're in the same, you know, not city, but vicinity. And in terms of, like, building, like, team cohesion from, like, your minor league to your, you know,
Yeah. It's
your
not such a
NHL
big deal.
team.
You're on the Canucks.
You're on
either
the
way.
Canucks.
Yeah.
I like the Johnny Canuck logo. I will admit I'm not crazy about the jersey itself. I think they
Like the
could have
home
done
jersey, you
something.
mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like the white one.
A lot of people don't like the green.
And it's funny because I've always for a long time said that I want more green jerseys, but there's something about that one that it just doesn't sit well with me. And I like both parts. Like the Johnny Canuck, I like the green, but somehow they don't work for me.
Yeah.
But it doesn't really matter.
I kind of like it just because, like, what are they going to do? Another blue just like the Canucks? Like, you got to do something a little different one.
Yeah, I know there were people that really wanted them to have the skate, and then I kind of got caught up in that a bit. But again, Johnny Canuck is different. Like, the Canucks have never used it on one of their logos.
No, I'm happy. That's my favorite one.
Yeah.
When they were going to win the Cup, a Chicago Blackhawk fan who had just won, they won in 2010. In 2011, they were going on the run, the Canucks were, and he told me that he would get a Johnny Canuck tattoo with me on the back of our legs if they won the Cup.
Yeah.
And he got pretty nervous at the end.
Oh, yeah, I can see that.
He didn't really think at the time. But anyways,
yeah.
I like Johnny Canuck.
I like Johnny Canuck, too.
The only other things I really had was like PD shooting again.
Yeah,
that's
good to
exciting,
see.
positive
Good
news.
to see. We like it.
And then the rumors that won't go away, like we've already talked about the Nate Schmidt stuff, and just like Benning denies it.
Well, there's another good one that came out yesterday too with my boy.
Yeah, with Besser.
Brock, which is like, we're at that time of the off season again. I really don't see it happening, but again, no one is like totally untouchable.
That's the thing. No one's untouchable, and I think you probably heard like Friedman explain it the way he did, saying like it was probably one of those things that they were going for something, and that was the ask, and they talked about it, and it got out or whatever. But like, I don't see it.
Yeah, the only other thing that I'll say about the Canucks right now is that evidently they're getting like a lot of interest in Braden Holtby, which I think has even been surprising for the team. And there's at least been teams calling. I mean, the problem with Holtby is because of his contract, the Canucks are probably going to have to retain money if they do trade him. And if you're retaining like even $1 million off your backup goalie, essentially, you're going to have to go out and find another backup goalie. And you're not really going to be saving that much money off your cap in the end.
Yeah, exactly.
So it'll be interesting to see what they do. And like, there's another kind of theory out there with Seattle that they're going to try to kind of like hoard goalies and then trade them to the teams that need them. Because there's
kinda
a
like
bunch.
Vegas did with the defense.
Yeah. Mind you, I don't know if it's as smart a play as with the defense because goalies usually don't actually get that much in return.
No, they don't.
So, anyway, it'll be interesting to see what happens with Holtby. If the Canucks could get rid of that $4.5 million off their books, it would be good for the team, obviously. And there's all sorts of rumors about the Canucks. I could talk for a long time because then I just switched into the other thing people are freaking out about, which was like the Zach Hyman rumors.
Oh, yeah.
And again,
they can't afford it.
They can't afford him. Personally speaking, I really like Zach Hyman, but you can't give him too much money. You can't give him too much term, and he's going to want both. So...
He's already 29.
And he's 29.
Yeah,
so it would be stupid, like, unless you're signing him to, like, 3 years at, like, maybe, like, $5 million, but they won't. Exactly. No. You'd have to either over-term him or overpay.
Yeah.
So, anyway, I don't think it's going to happen, but that was a good, Canuck fan freak out about that one.
Totally. I think we're moving off
Yeah,
Canucks.
We can move off the Canucks.
So, I'm trying to go chronologically a little bit, too, for what was happening through the week. So, like, Pierre McGuire got hired as the Senior Vice President of Player Development in Ottawa.
That was a good day, that one.
And I thought that was a pretty funny day.
Yeah.
Because the next one we'll talk about after that was a bit bigger and a bit funnier, but, like, I don't like Pierre myself. And I think it's hilarious that Ottawa would see some talent in him to give him that big of a role.
Yeah, so there's two things that came out of that I found very amusing. I also am not a big fan of Pierre. I don't know that many people that are, openly. But he was talking, and evidently he was offered a GM position in, like, 2013, and he interviewed for Pittsburgh's job then, but he turned it down because he still had, like, 7 years left with NBC at that point.
Oh, I see.
So... I think it's hilarious that he would have been offered that position to begin with. But then, like, Ottawa's one of those teams, like, to me, there's Ottawa and there's Buffalo, which are two teams that I don't really have any connection to, but I just really want them to not be as bad as they've been for, not their entire, like, careers as teams, but, like, basically, the last 10 years here, I mean, Ottawa was okay, but... It's just patterns, right? Where you just, like, you could hire someone decent, and then it's like, no, I'm going to go hire Pierre McGuire. Like, why? Anyway, I do feel sorry for Sens fans, but they do have an exciting young team, and I hope that he doesn't, ruin that for them.
Mm-hmm. Well, we'll see, but interesting move, nonetheless.
Yeah.
And then we get to do a trade winner and participant ribbon for that day as well, with Edmonton getting Duncan Keith at full price.
Yes.
For Caleb Jones and a third rounder.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think the obvious winner here is Chicago.
Winner Chicago.
The only thing that I will say is I did find out today that if Keith retires after this season, then the Oilers will get like a bunch of cap relief. I can't remember. It's one of those weird things. So maybe they talked to him and straight up asked him, like, is this going to be your last year?
Right.
And that's the only way I can see this not being, like, a disaster for Edmonton, basically. But yeah, I mean, Edmonton is really in an interesting position because, like, they already didn't have much cap space. They added, Keith's 5 point whatever for this
5.5
5
or
for this.
5.6,
Yeah,
something like that.
they need to re-sign like a bunch of RFAs
And Adam Larson.
who I mean shouldn't be super expensive this like time, but it's still something.
Yeah,
and then like you want to sell to your big boys like McDavid and Draisaitl that you're moving forward in a better direction. And I don't understand Duncan Keith, especially when if you waited like a day, you probably could have gotten Suter. Although I don't know if you play in Canada, that's all the rumors, but you could have probably inquired about Letty. Like,
there was other options.
There were other options, but
yeah, I think they jumped the gun a little bit, and the fact that they didn't make Chicago retain anything, like apparently like all the headlines in Chicago sports was like they were all like, this is unbelievable, we didn't retain any money kind of thing.
And Chicago too now is gonna be like the front runner for Seth Jones. 100%.
So they got his brother, who's a much lesser defense but young still, and a third rounder, which is not bad. So they definitely got the win. And the only thing that like the intangible that we'll never really know for a while is if Duncan Keith does go to Edmonton, and like there's a lot of good young defense there, and if he does the thing where they all kind of learn the proper way to do it from them, and they all become good as like a unit,
then it's worth it.
But like it's like the odds are pretty low.
Yeah.
So, anyways, enough about Edmonton and Chicago because they're Edmonton and Chicago. But moving on to the next team that we don't like, which is Boston re-signing Brandon Carlo for 6 years at $4.1 million. Which I thought set a decent market for defense that are like the ones that do minutes, that don't get a lot of points, that defend well.
I thought that was a good deal for Boston. And then, again, Boston seems to be one of those teams that is always able to get good prices for their expiring contracts or whatever.
Yeah, whether people want to play there or whatever it is.
I don't know what she's eating.
That's okay.
Okay. Sorry. So I think it's a good move for the Bruins.
Next move in the league was Pekka Rinne retired after 15 NHL seasons. UC Saros is now the number one bona fide goalie in Nashville with the retirement of Pekka Rinne.
Yes.
And he is the most games played and the most wins and the most shutouts in the regular season for any Finnish goalie.
Oh, cool, yeah. Didn't know that.
Some big accolades for him. I think it's going to be hard for him to be a Hall of Fame goalie, but he was good.
Yeah, he was good for a very long time, and I read his, farewell Nashville thing that he did in the Players Tribune, and it was very touching, and he seems to be really close with UC Saros, so, yeah, I think that it was probably the right time for him, and, I mean, I remember when the Canucks played Nashville in 2011, that was, the one player you were kind of worried about, right, above everyone else was okay, maybe Pekka Rinne can steal this series for them kind of thing.
Yeah. Never quite got it on the playoffs.
Got to the final, yeah. But I mean, even the team that made it to the final, they were never that, complete.
Yeah.
Feel like he never really got to play in front of, a super good team. But, yeah, good career nonetheless.
Yeah, so, Saros, they'll probably get a backup for a few years, and then Askarov will make his way up there, I assume.
I assume so as well, yeah.
Moving to Montreal.
Yeah.
Ducharme got extended for 3 years.
Yes.
From his interim status, now full-time coach. And quick news, I got nothing really to say. He took him to the final, and
they had to do it, right?
Yeah.
There's no way they couldn't give Ducharme the full head coach title. And I mean, it's exactly what happened with Rick Bowness last year, right? 100% the same story. And it'll be interesting to see how Ducharme does during the regular season next year and beyond. I have a couple things to say about Montreal if we can just stop on them for a second.
Yeah, I have the Weber news. I know you want to touch on that.
Yeah, so the big kind of news that came out this week about Shea Weber was that basically he's going to be done. His foot is super messed up and his ankle is very messed up, and they don't think he's ever going to play hockey again. And if you watch, the celebration part when Tampa won the cup, like all the Canadian players went over to Weber first to kind of like cheer him up, I guess, or console him or whatever. And at the time, you didn't really think that much of it, but now it's coming out that's probably like his last game. And the kind of, I mean, we can talk about Weber in a second, like as a player, because I don't want to discredit him if this is the end of his career. But the interesting part is that the NHL has kind of come out and said that they don't like that he's going to be going on to long-term injured reserve because he was on that backdiving contract. Now, I think it's really fascinating that the NHL has kind of picked this contract to be like, no, we're mad about. And it was something about the timing of when they went to put him on LTIR.
Okay.
And again, I'm not like 100% sure on the details here, but it sounds like it's going to be some sort of battle between the NHL and the NHLPA over if this contract can be put on long-term injured reserve. Now, if it can, Montreal becomes a super fascinating team because they have a bunch of cap space.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, if I'm Dougie Hamilton, like, they need a right D, and Shea Weber's done. Okay, I'm gonna chuck whatever money he wants at him to come to Montreal. But beyond that, and they've been a team that's kind of been whispered about as like a potential target for Eichel, and I think that would be really interesting because they basically have the cap space now and they have the pieces to get a deal done with Buffalo. Obviously, they're in the same division, so they'll probably would have to pay more. But if I'm, Bergevin, and I'm looking at this team that almost got it done this year, and I can add like a legit number one center to this team, I'd probably do whatever it takes to get that.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that they're going to be the team to watch in the off season with whatever they do, because money is, so valuable at this time of like life with COVID basically, and no one has cap space, and if you have cap space then you're in the driver's seat. And yeah,
it's going to be an interesting off season for a lot of teams. I think there's going to be a lot of teams that surprise us with how active they are, because there's just so much happening. And speaking of big things happening, the reason I'm wearing my Minnesota jersey, besides because I love the retro reverse, is because they made the big move to buy out Parise and Suter the other day.
Yes.
Which is massive because they had 4 years left on their big deals. They signed 13-year deals.
Yeah, the same day too.
Same day, yeah. Minnesota boys going home, and they won 2 playoff rounds, and so they're going to be paying for them on the books for the next 8 years. It saves them $10 million this year. Years 2, 3, 4 are big cap hits, but then after that, it's not bad. But they will be paying still for 4 more years after that for them to do nothing. Yeah. So it's interesting because I think we both agree that like Suter was kind of surprising. Yeah. And Parise was not so much. We knew he was on the outs. He was getting scratched a lot. They had the deal in place to maybe get him to the Islanders for who is it there?
Ladd.
Andrew Ladd. Yeah, that's right. So. It's crazy. It freed them up a lot of money right now, and a lot of people are theorizing it's to spend the money on Eichel and worry about the money later to get the centerman, to get Kaprizov to sign. Yeah. So it would be interesting to see how much they had to give up to get him too.
Yeah, I can't think about who like Minnesota has kind of in their system to give Buffalo. But it would be, like, again, more advantageous for Buffalo to trade with Minnesota because you're out of conference and you don't have to see them that much. And if that is the reason why they did it, then, like, Bill Guerin's going to have to be so smart in years 3 through 4 on how you get that team under the cap.
Oh, yeah. He's going to have to be super money conscious with the Kaprizov contract coming. And then if he did get the Eichel, too,
Yeah, and the one rumor I heard about Minnesota was like maybe they go, I told you this, like all in this year because they're saving the $10 million. They get Eichel, they keep him for the year, and then they flip him.
Or they just move out other pieces.
But I mean, again, it's crazy.
So with that move, like Suter's rumor everywhere.
Yeah.
I'm picking Philly. I know I picked Philly with the Seth Jones things, but I don't think he's willing to extend there.
No.
And they've always loved Nashville original D-men, which
true.
Suter is.
Well, they signed him. Oh, they signed
They offer
Weber.
sheeted Weber successfully in the Nashville match. Yeah. They traded for the rights to Ham Hughes and tried to sign him before he said, no, I'm going Vancouver or nowhere kind of thing.
Yeah.
And they did try to sign Suter when he signed in Minnesota. So
yeah.
they need that. They need that guy, and he would fit that role that they know they need. So I can see Philly be willing to throw the most money in term at Suter too because they're desperate.
Yeah.
But we'll see. Parise, I think it's pretty obvious will probably end up in the island.
I think so.
With Lou Lamb. But, I mean, he might go back to New Jersey. Or, I mean, I've also read L.A. because he's good buddies with Quick and Brown from Team USA.
Right, yeah.
So, and they need wingers.
Yeah.
So, it'll be interesting to see. I could see the Canucks going for Parise. I see no reason for him to go to Vancouver.
No. I think both those guys are going in the States. Suter's already basically said, I don't want to go anywhere else. I have this weird feeling with Suter that he's going to end up in Boston, and I think it's just because, Boston loves those, American players. That's their, identity. But also, he'd have to sign for cheap, which I assume after getting bought out, he probably doesn't care. And Boston always seems to be a team that gets someone decent.
So I'm going to say no, and I'll explain to you why after, but I feel like this is going to be reminiscent of when Tampa Bay bought out LeCavalier.
Okay.
And he was still going to make a boatload of money, and then Philly signed a stupid big deal with him anyways, and they just kind of sewered his career.
Yeah.
It's one really big thing that bums me out about LeCavalier and the Flyers, mainly the Flyers, because they totally wrecked him. But anyways, I'm getting sidetracked. I could see the Suter thing being similar to that.
So he's going to take money even though he's making a boatload to
and I'll explain why not Boston in a bit here when we get to it.
Sounds good.
So I feel like that was a good Minnesota rant about those guys, because that's huge. It's going to make a big impact on the offseason.
Yeah.
And then talking with Philly still is apparently Voracek's been let know that he's going to be exposed to Seattle, and if he doesn't get picked, which I'd be surprised if he doesn't, because he seems like the type of player that he'd be so pissed off from getting picked that he would do well.
Yeah.
And it's only 3 years left, but it is 8.25
Yeah, it's a lot of money.
They'll need to hit a cap floor too, so I can see them taking him, but they're going to try to trade him apparently if they don't take him.
Right.
So that's kind of interesting. I'm not too disappointed about that because he's totally lost his ability to score right now. He hasn't scored goals for a long time, and most of his assists are power play assists.
Yeah.
So I'm not
it's probably time to move out some of the older guys too.
Yeah, and they're never gonna move Giroux, so it's one of the two, I think.
Yeah.
So that was what I had with him, and then I've got 3 quick ones for people waiving their no move clauses for Seattle, which are Eric Johnson, Colorado, which helps them big time.
Yeah.
Skinner in Buffalo, which is not surprising because Seattle's not going to take him. No. And Ben Bishop in Dallas, which was a little more surprising, but they obviously Kudobin, the injuries,
and then Ottinger, whatever. I'm not surprised by any of those. Maybe Eric Johnson because he could have said no.
Yeah, and I think people are a little more open to it this time after seeing the Vegas thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then here's my next one that will explain why I said no
I understand.
Suter.
I just read the thing. Yeah.
So Florida bought out 2 years of Keith Yandel.
Yes.
He was somewhere in between $5.5 and $6 million a year for those 2 years.
Yes.
And year 1 they save $3 to $4 mil. Year 2 they're hit back with basically the full cap, and then year 3 and year 4 are a little over $1 mil a piece.
Yeah.
So apparently, when they were talking about trading him before, he had a no-move clause, and it was Boston or nowhere.
Yeah.
So I think now that he's got bought out,
he'll
exactly what you were saying about Suter, he'll sign on the cheap in Boston, and I think they'll do it.
I don't know why I didn't think about Yandel when I said Suter, but so that makes sense.
I think that will happen, and that gave them the money to immediately sign an extension with Duclair for 3 years at $3 million, and that is the move that I wish Vancouver would do, 1 year deal last year, 1.8. He over-exceeded that, and he earned a nice 3 at 3.
Yeah.
Right? And he probably could have got more on the open market after that year he had. But he knows he has a good spot as a winger with those good centermen.
Yeah.
Why not mess with it? So.
And also Florida has the advantage too, right, of the no state tax thing.
No state tax,
which does
and
play
a beautiful
into
sunny
it. And
place.
A beautiful sunny place.
Yeah.
They like the lifestyle playing there. And Florida looks like they're going to be competitive. So, all those things are good, right?
Mm-hmm.
They play into your advantage of getting someone to sign cheaper. And the Canucks, sorry, I just need to throw this out there for 2 seconds, are going to have to be really careful here starting soon because they did have an advantage of having a beautiful place to live where the weather's like not horrible. But with Seattle coming into the league, it is going to throw a wrench into things because there's going to be players, they'll be like, why would I go to Vancouver if I could go to Seattle, kind of thing.
Because the taxes are better down there.
Yes.
Yeah, and it's the same location.
It's the same
basically.
location, so if they have a more competitive team, they're probably going to attract more players that are decent.
Yeah, kind of like the Calgary and Edmonton thing almost.
Yeah, so.
Sort of.
But yeah, so the Canucks are going to have to be a little bit more wary of that, I think.
I think so, too.
Yeah.
I was going to bring up that apparently Nick Leddy was available, and then just like a couple hours ago, he got traded to Detroit.
Yes.
From New York Islanders for Richard Panik's half contract, which is like 1.4 per year. For 2 more years, like Detroit retained half of it, I should say.
Yeah.
And a second round pick.
Right.
So seems like the market for like good 2 to 4 defense that like aren't scorers is being set.
With the second and something else.
I thought it was a good move for Detroit. I mean, he is getting older though.
Yeah.
And it was a second round pick, so good for the Islanders too. I would almost give the Islanders this one because Panik will give them a little bit of depth for 1.42 for a couple of years. So I don't hate it, and he might just get picked by Seattle. Who knows? Yeah,
I think again the Islanders kind of similar. We haven't talked about the Colorado deal yet, but I feel like both of them are pretty close, and that they kind of had to move a defenseman because of the expansion draft.
Yeah, exactly.
And then they got back probably more than what I thought they would have because everyone knew that they had to get rid of this player, right?
Or lose him for nothing.
Yeah, or lose him for nothing. So I think in both cases, like, the team kind of that traded away a defenseman did better, but again, I think Leddy to Detroit probably makes sense. Like, they need to bring in some more veteran guys there that can actually play, and hopefully they'll start getting a bit better this next year. So, not a bad move.
Not bad.
Yeah.
So who do you give the win to?
I'll give it to the Islanders.
Yeah. They got a good return.
Yeah.
And then same thing I thought when Colorado traded Ryan Graves to New Jersey for a second rounder and
Mishkakov.
a prospect that they say is going to top out is probably like a fourth line center, best case scenario maybe third line center.
Yeah.
So again, I was surprised, second rounder and a prospect for Graves, who is probably like a good 3-4.
Yeah.
But again, they kind of had to move somebody, and why not get something for him? And because, like you said, they kind of knew that they had to move him or lose him for nothing.
Yeah.
To still get a prospect in a second seems to be pretty good.
Yeah, I think that was a really smart move by Colorado, and I think that they kind of used like these playoffs as a selling point for Graves because I feel like he wouldn't have gotten that before this playoffs, but he had a bit of a coming out party. He looked pretty good, and so like New Jersey is in very big need of D-men, and it'll be really interesting to see what happens with PK Subban and Seattle because that's another player that I think would be interesting. I know he's got a huge cap hit, but he only has 1 year left on his deal.
Oh, I see.
So it's someone that I'm like, yeah, I could maybe see Seattle like taking a risk and taking him on, but like, yeah, New Jersey needs to revamp their D, and I think Graves is a good fit for them.
Yeah, it might work out. He's still young, but like New Jersey's second rounder is going to be like
it's going to be pretty high.
Early, So we'll see. It was a bit of an overpayment, I think. And so,
I give the win to Colorado for sure.
Me too.
Yeah.
It was a good move.
Yeah.
So that was the end of my extensive list of things. Did you have any other things I missed?
I don't think so. I think that's everything.
All right, well, that was awesome because there was news. So I feel like we might have to do like another mini news episode and then the expansion draft prediction episode because I feel like just even between us filming now and those lists coming out, there might be some movement. There might be some stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, we'll be back next time either to talk news and do a mock expansion draft or they might be separate things. But we're going to do stuff soon. It's all happening.
It's happening now. This is the week.
Yeah, it's exciting.
Yeah.
So the lists will be made available tomorrow to the other teams, and then they're public to us on Sunday.
Okay, that's when it is.
So we got 2 days of news possibly.
Okay, sweet. Sounds good.
Yeah, so we'll be back with episode 45 next time, and thank you for listening to Hockey Talk on the Rock.